January 2026 delivered the kind of television moment publicists fear and critics live for. Across Britain and California, screens flickered to life as viewers tuned in to watch the latest episode of Piers Morgan Uncensored. Most expected another sharp monologue, another headline, another clash, a feud that has stretched across nearly a decade. But what unfolded felt bigger than that, colder, sharper, more deliberate. This wasn't just criticism, it felt like an autopsy. From the opening seconds of the broadcast, the tone was unmistakable. Piers Morgan sat back in his chair with the expression of a man who believed time had finally proven him right. There was no shouting, no theatrical outrage, no chaos, just satisfaction, because this time he wasn't reacting to an interview. He wasn't reacting to a tabloid story. He was reacting to Meghan Markle's newest Netflix project, and according to him, it exposed everything. The series, With Love, Meghan, was supposed to mark a new beginning, a reinvention, a carefully orchestrated transition away from royal controversy and toward California elegance. Netflix positioned it as warm, intimate, personal, a window into Meghan's world. Cooking, gardening, entertaining, friendship, soft sunlight through kitchen windows, fresh herbs on marble counters, candles glowing in the background. The Duchess, no longer a royal exile, but a lifestyle icon, a guide to beautiful living, a host inviting the world into her home. It was designed to feel effortless, and that, according to Piers Morgan, was exactly the problem, because to him, none of it looked real. He opened with what viewers immediately began calling the 10-minute rule. Piers admitted he sat down intending to watch the full premiere because, as he put it, professional duty required it. But then he confessed something that instantly exploded online. He couldn't finish it. He told viewers that, after only a few minutes, he felt himself mentally drifting. Not because the show was offensive, but because it felt empty. He described it as beautifully photographed nothingness, a show that wasn't about food, wasn't about gardening, wasn't about entertaining, but a show about Meghan watching herself do all three. He mocked the camera angles, the slow pans, the close-ups of jam spreading over toast, the flowers, the linen napkins, the curated laughter, the endless smiling. It isn't hospitality, he said. It's self-advertising. And suddenly social media split into two camps, those who thought he was cruel, and those who thought he was saying exactly what everyone else was already thinking. But then came the detail that changed everything. Because criticism is one thing, a fact-check is another. Piers leaned forward and dropped the revelation that instantly shifted the conversation from style to authenticity. The kitchen wasn't hers. Viewers had spent the episode believing they were watching Meghan Markle open the doors of her Montecito home. The implication was obvious. Welcome inside my life. Welcome into my private world. Welcome to my kitchen. Except, according to reports highlighted during the broadcast, it wasn't her kitchen at all. The production had reportedly been filmed not inside the Sussex mansion, but inside another luxury farmhouse nearby, a separate property, borrowed for filming, a house owned by local philanthropists. And the moment that information landed, the internet erupted. Why not film in your own home? Why invite the world into your life from someone else's property? Why stage intimacy somewhere borrowed? Within hours, critics were calling it symbolic, a metaphor for the Sussex brand itself, beautiful, expensive, impressive from a distance, but rented, constructed, designed for presentation. Piers didn't hold back. He argued that the borrowed farmhouse revealed the central contradiction that has followed Meghan and Harry since leaving royal life. They want privacy, but also access. They want distance, but visibility. They want control over every image, while still selling openness. And when those desires collide, you end up filming a home lifestyle series in someone else's kitchen, not because the food matters, but because the backdrop does. The countertops matter. The light matters. The image matters. The performance matters. And that performance, Piers argued, has become impossible not to see. Then came the clip that made headlines around the world. A scene from the series featuring actress and producer Mindy Kaling. The moment looked casual, friendly, relaxed. Two women talking while cooking. Mindy made an offhand comment referencing Meghan Markle, harmless, normal, but Meghan interrupted, smiled, then corrected her. You know I'm Sussex now. The pause afterward lasted only seconds. But it was enough. Enough for viewers to replay it, enough for commentators to freeze the frame, enough for the clip to spread everywhere. Because suddenly the branding tension became visible in a single sentence. Here was Meghan trying to present herself as relatable, accessible, warm, domestic, The woman next door with recipes and garden tips. Yet in the middle of that intimacy, she reminded everyone of the title. Sussex, not Markle. Sussex. Piers pounced immediately. And he did it with surgical precision. He reminded viewers that both Meghan and Harry have spent years publicly criticizing the royal institution, the hierarchy, the expectations, the machinery of monarchy. They left, they moved across the world, built a new life in California, said they wanted freedom. But now, while baking in a borrowed farmhouse kitchen, the title remained front and center. To Piers, that wasn't irony, that was the whole story. He mocked the contradiction relentlessly. You can't spend years denouncing the palace, he said, then insist everyone use the title the palace gave you. And whether people agreed with him or not, the clip kept spreading. Because the awkwardness felt real, and real moments are rare currency in celebrity media. By the end of the broadcast, the conversation around with Love, Meghan had changed. It was no longer just a Netflix lifestyle show. It had become a debate about image construction, about authenticity, about performance, about whether Meghan Markle was inviting audiences into her real life or into a carefully designed version of one. Even critics who defended her admitted the optics were difficult. Because lifestyle television depends on trust. It doesn't matter how perfect the recipes are, or how beautiful the flowers look, or how expensive the cookware is. If viewers stop believing you, the entire structure collapses, and that was Piers Morgan's central accusation, that the warmth felt staged, the friendships felt curated, the house felt borrowed, the lifestyle felt manufactured, and the series, meant to be a reinvention, instead became evidence. Evidence that the gap between Meghan's public brand and private reality may be wider than ever. Meanwhile, in Montecito, silence, no response, no statement, no rebuttal. Netflix said nothing. The Sussex camp said nothing. Meghan herself said nothing. And sometimes, silence says more than interviews ever can. Because by the next morning, every entertainment columnist in Britain was asking the same question. Was Piers Morgan simply obsessed? Still fighting a personal grudge from a decade ago? Or had he just exposed the central weakness of Meghan's new empire? The answer depends on who you ask. But one thing was undeniable. A show meant to relaunch Meghan Markle as a lifestyle powerhouse had become the center of another global controversy within hours of release. And for the Duchess of Sussex, that wasn't the fresh start anyone planned. The kitchen looked perfect. The flowers were arranged. The candles were lit. The camera was rolling. But the illusion, for many viewers, had already started to crack. To understand why Piers Morgan reacted so fiercely in 2026, you have to go back 10 years, to a London evening long before the Netflix cameras, before Montecito, before royal titles became brands, and before the world knew Meghan Markle as the Duchess of Sussex. Because according to Piers, this story didn't begin with a cooking show. It began with a drink. London, summer 2016. At the time, Meghan Markle was best known as an actress on the TV show Suits. Famous enough to be recognized, but not yet globally unavoidable. She was active online, politically outspoken, and increasingly visible in media circles on both sides of the Atlantic. Piers Morgan was already an established media figure, polarizing, outspoken, impossible to ignore. According to him, Meghan reached out first, a direct message on social media, friendly, complimentary. She said she admired his work. He responded. What followed, by Piers's own telling, was months of messages, occasional conversations, a growing familiarity. Eventually, when Meghan was in London, they agreed to meet. The location was a pub in Kensington, the kind of place where journalists and television personalities slip into corners and stay for hours. Piers later described the evening in cinematic detail. Dirty martinis, easy conversation, politics, media, Hollywood. The royal family wasn't part of the story yet, at least not publicly. Piers has said Meghan was warm, intelligent, funny, highly aware of how media worked, and exceptionally charming. By all accounts, the evening went well. So well, in fact, that Piers has repeated for years that he left thinking they would remain in touch. He says the conversation lasted around 2 hours. At the end of the night, he walked her outside, put her in a cab, watched it drive off, and according to his version of events, that cab didn't just carry Meghan across London. It carried her into a completely different life, because that same evening she reportedly headed to a private gathering where she would meet Prince Harry, and after that, silence. No text, no follow-up, no thank you message, nothing. Piers says she vanished, ghosted completely. For him, it wasn't merely disappointing, it was revealing, at least that's how he frames it. For years he has pointed to that night as the moment he formed his lasting opinion of Meghan Markle. not as a duchess or a public figure, but as a person. He argues that once Harry entered the picture, everyone else became irrelevant, that she moved upward and left previous connections behind without hesitation. Whether that interpretation is fair or not remains debated. Supporters of Meghan dismiss the story entirely. They argue she owed him nothing. A drink is a drink. A conversation is a conversation. No one is obligated to maintain a friendship afterward. They say Piers transformed a personal bruise into a decade-long public obsession. Critics of Meghan see it differently. They view it as an early example of strategic social climbing, of knowing exactly who matters in a room, of choosing the next step and never looking back. Whatever the truth, that night became the origin point of one of modern celebrity media's strangest and most persistent feuds, and by 2026 it still hadn't ended. If anything, it had intensified. Because Piers doesn't speak about Meghan like a distant commentator. He speaks like someone who believes he saw the blueprint before anyone else, before the wedding, before the Oprah interview, before the documentaries, before California, before Netflix. He believes he understood the machine early, and because of that belief, every new Meghan project becomes evidence. Every interview becomes confirmation. Every brand launch becomes proof, which is why, with Love, Meghan landed so differently for him. To most critics, it was just another celebrity lifestyle show. To Piers, it was the latest chapter in a long-running pattern. He told viewers the Netflix series wasn't reinvention, it was rebranding. And there's a difference. Reinvention suggests change. Rebranding suggests packaging. He argued that Meghan has always understood packaging better than almost anyone in public life. From actress to activist to royal fiancée to duchess to victim of palace culture to podcast host to documentary producer to entrepreneur to lifestyle guru, different versions, different aesthetics, same camera, same center, same narrative gravity. Piers insists he saw it back in 2016, and that's why he refuses to back down. That refusal has cost him. The biggest rupture came in 2021. Following Meghan and Harry's explosive interview with Oprah Winfrey, Piers publicly questioned Meghan's claims, especially around mental health and the royal family. The backlash was immediate. Tens of thousands of complaints flooded in. The pressure escalated, and eventually, he walked off the set of Good Morning Britain. The footage became iconic. One presenter leaving a major network job live on air, a split-screen moment that instantly entered television history. At the time, many saw it as career-ending. But by 2026, Piers sees it differently. He sees it liberation. He says he no longer answers to network executives. No producers telling him to soften his tone. No corporate oversight. No apology tours. No restraint. On Piers Morgan Uncensored, he can say exactly what he wants, and Meghan remains one of his favorite targets, which makes him uniquely dangerous. Because unlike traditional royal commentators, he doesn't pretend neutrality. He doesn't hide his bias. He leans into it. He weaponizes it. And audiences reward honesty, even hostile honesty, more than polished diplomacy. That's part of why his criticism still lands, even among people who don't particularly like him. Because he says the quiet part loudly. He says what tabloids imply, what commentators dance around, what fans argue about online, and he says it without hesitation. By the time With Love, Meghan premiered, Piers already had a decade of history with its central figure. So when he watched Meghan smiling in sunlit kitchens, correcting people on her name, offering recipes and stories, he wasn't seeing a duchess reinventing herself. He was seeing the woman from the London pub, only now with Netflix lighting, bigger budgets, more cameras, higher stakes, same performance. And that's what makes this feud impossible to untangle. Because it exists at the crossroads of the personal and the public. Was Meghan rude to ghost him? Maybe. Was it malicious? Impossible to know. Did Piers take it personally? Almost certainly. Has that personal history shaped every criticism since? Very likely. But has his criticism sometimes landed on truths broader audiences also notice? Clearly, yes. That's why the feud survives. Because it isn't purely personal anymore. It's cultural. It has become shorthand for a larger argument about celebrity itself, about authenticity, about branding, about victimhood, about status, about fame in the streaming age. Piers sees Meghan as the ultimate symbol of performance culture. Meghan's defenders see Piers as a bitter broadcaster who never got over being ignored. Both narratives continue feeding each other, and each new project adds fuel. The Netflix show didn't end the feud, it refreshed it, like reopening an old wound under brighter lights. By early 2026, clips of Piers's takedown were everywhere. On X, on YouTube, on British morning panels, on entertainment podcasts, and buried beneath every conversation was that old London story. The pub, the martinis, the cab, the silence afterward. One unanswered text becoming a decade-long media war. It sounds absurd, almost too absurd to be real. And yet, celebrity history is full of moments exactly like this. Tiny private interactions that later become public mythology. And myths are powerful, especially when both sides refuse to let them die. For Meghan, Piers is a critic she never responds to directly. For Piers, Meghan is a figure he never stops analyzing. Neither needs to speak to the other anymore. The feud lives without contact, without messages, without meetings, only headlines, broadcasts, clips, reactions, and audiences watching. By 2026, the woman who once sat across from him over drinks in London had become one of the most scrutinized women in the world, and the man who says she ghosted him still hasn't stopped talking.